All right, so let's get into some of the causes and effects. This is where your notes are going to come in. So I'm going to walk you through some of these, and then you'll kind of be on your own. But this is kind of like the meat of the chapter here. Okay. All right. So first thing we're going to talk about is food supply. So once humans learned how to farm, that's going to affect their food supply. Okay. So let's take a look at what we're going to do here is we're going to look at a then and now. So then being the Paleolithic era and the now being the Neolithic. So in Paleolithic times, again, we're hunting, we're gathering. This is not stable. This is not dependable. We eat wild plants. We go out and we hunt wild animals. But the problem is if you stayed in one spot for too long, those food sources would go away. Not to mention hunting was also quite dangerous. Okay, hunters were often injured or even killed when going out and trying to get food. In Neolithic times, again, we discovered that we could plant and grow our own crops. We could start domesticating animals, which means kind of capture animals and use them for our own purposes, mainly for the sources of milk and meat in the beginning. And then eventually we learned that animals can be used for transportation. Okay, we can use them to plow the fields. We can use them to hitch carts to and ride around. Very important word here, and we're going to talk more about this. Growing crops, so farming, and domesticating animals, using animals for your own use, is a big word called agriculture. That really is what we're seeing here, okay? When humans learn how to do these two things, grow crops and domesticate animals, we are participating in the agricultural revolution. That's what that is. And so for the first time, humans have a stable food supply, and that is huge. This is one of the most important advances in all of human history. So I just got some little pictures here for you, hunters and gatherers up there in the top left, and then eventually coming and learning how to grow our own food. Again, much safer, much more practical, much more dependable. All right, so let's go to our notes. So in your notes, I want you to do this with me, and if you need to pause the video at any time to finish them and do it at your own pace, please feel free to do that, okay? So what we're doing here is on this chart, we're looking at food supply, which is over to the left, and we're going to take we can't write down everything from those slides. We're just going to grab the main important ideas. So the first one, in Paleolithic times, ... I want you to write down that we were hunting and gathering. And in parentheses, I have the word unstable. Then in Neolithic times, ... we are farming and domesticating animals. This is called agriculture, okay? Agriculture. Now, the last part of your notes here is this is important because, okay? And this is really the important part of your notes. Why was moving from hunting and gathering to farming and domesticating animals important? Well, when it comes to food supply, this was important because this is the first time that we've had a stable food supply, and this is now allowing humans to relax. We can chill out, we can breathe, we don't have to worry about food, we don't have to go out and hunt and, die in the process or get injured in the process. We can really focus on just kind of enjoying life for the first time. So again, please take a moment, make sure your notes are completely filled out the way I have them here. And if you need to press pause or if you have any questions at any time, please, please, please come seek me, come ask for help, raise your hand, and we can talk about it. All right, moving on. Cause and effect number 2. So we have a stable food supply. Now let's talk about our shelters. Excuse me. All right, shelter. Then and now. All right, so in Paleolithic times, remember we lived in caves or other temporary structures. We were exposed to harsh weather and animals. And one thing we haven't talked about yet is very few possessions. Humans do not really own or have a lot of things, mainly because probably they didn't need it, or it was very impractical. If you're on the move every 6 months, you're not going to own a lot of things. Okay, so the idea of possession and ownership hasn't really even happened yet. And again, humans are moving at least every 6 months. So in Neolithic times, though, we start staying where our food is located. So because we know how to farm, because we got some animals, we're going to start staying in one spot. We're going to start building permanent homes, and we're going to, humans started making this out of mud-baked bricks, so kind of like hard clay, if you would. and then adding timber to that to make the structure a little bit more stable. You're also going to see multi-room homes. I'm going to show you a Neolithic home, an illustration of one here in just a little bit. And what's kind of cool is in some of these Neolithic homes, you're starting to see entire rooms designated to storing and keeping food, and then entire rooms dedicated to preparing and cooking the food. So really, this is kind of the first time in human history the concept of a kitchen is going to be seen. And what this then leads to is humans finding new ways to cook their food, okay? Not always just roasting it on the fire, but, maybe boiling things and baking things and kind of oven-like structures. So this is kind of where humans are starting to, not just eat to survive, but learning unique and new ways and flavorful ways to eat and enjoy food. These shelters obviously were a lot more protective from the weather and the animals than, living in the caves or the temporary structures were. And life becomes more comfortable. Okay, we're not moving around. We've got some stuff. We've got nice homes. We've got rooms. Life is just a whole lot better. And then what you start to see is because people are not moving around, people are starting to cluster next to one another. And what this is going to lead into is you're going to start to see the very first communities where people start living next to each other, sharing space, where, again, that wasn't happening before, okay? So here is, again, it's an illustration of a Neolithic home. Now, in this Neolithic home, you might see like many rooms, multiple families, kitchens, that kind of stuff. So you can kind of see the illustration. What's interesting about these homes, they actually entered their homes from the roof as a protective kind of area. So everyone would come in and they would enter the house through the roof, and then they would take the ladder away so no one could climb up it. So take a moment, you can pause the video, look at the picture, kind of interesting. Again, we don't really have any structures left like this, but it just kind of gives you a good sense of, again, moving from caves to something like this was a huge advancement. All right, let's take a look at our notes here. I'll do these again with you. Okay, so again, if you need to pause the video and finish the notes, please feel free to do that at any time. So taking a look at shelters. So in Paleolithic times, we had temporary homes. We lived in caves or tent-like structures. In Neolithic times, we now have permanent homes, mud-baked bricks, kind of what you see first, and then we're going to incorporate some wood, and we're going to get better and better over time. But in the beginning, that's kind of where we were. Now, why this is important, there's actually 3 thoughts here. Number 1, we're more comfortable as humans. We're more protected. And this is the big one. We start living in communities, groups of people working together, living, getting along, helping each other out. We're going to talk about that next. This is huge for the advancement of human society. So again, if you have any questions, please let me know. Take a moment, fill out your notes, and then we'll move on. All right, cause and effect number 3. We're now going to look at what we just talked about, those communities. So people really settling and living and working and being with one another. So Paleolithic times, people did not live in communities. They lived in small family clans or bands of probably no more than 20 to 60 people. Again, those people are wandering around in search of food, and survival is the main goal here. So you have to think about, this was a very practical move. You didn't want a group of 150 people, because if your group was too big, you would have trouble providing enough food for these people. And then your group would, die off. So it was practical to keep the groups small. Okay, you had to move around and you had to feed everybody. So groups and clans were very, very small, typically just a family unit. In Neolithic times, though, that is going to change. People are going to start settling down where the soil is fertile and we can start growing our food. Family groups start clustering around other people, maybe extensions of their family group or maybe entirely new family groups that are new to them. And people start organizing themselves. They start dividing up the work, okay? If you're no longer in a group of 20 to 60 and you're now a community of maybe a few hundred, there's no need for 300 people to go out and farm every day. You can have a few people go farming, a few people, make the baskets, a few people, raise the children, a few people learn how to cook better. So we start organizing ourselves as humans. And when we work together, humans start to realize you can get things done quicker. Okay, you can make the same amount of tools with fewer people than if everyone's making their own tools. Okay. So what this then does is it leaves more time and energy for other activities. And this is especially going to make life a little bit more comfortable. Larger communities could also protect themselves from enemies. Okay, so more people, more protection, more defense, and to keep ourselves safe. Here's a little illustration of what one of those little, again, early Neolithic communities would look like. These are several homes kind of all stacked with one another. And again, in this, you might have maybe 10 family groups. And then again, helping each other out, dividing up the jobs, making life a little bit more faster and easier for everyone. All right, so when it comes to our notes, I actually want you to try these on your own now. So what you can do is you can reverse the video and you can go look at my little slide where I said, in Paleolithic times and Neolithic times. Don't write down everything though. Please try to capture the big ideas. So what were communities like in Paleolithic times? What were communities like in Neolithic times? And why is the shift of that important? Why is it important that we started to live life a little bit differently? I will be checking these notes at the end of the video. So just try your best. And if anything is off or we need to revisit something, I will do that with you. Okay. All right. Cause and effect number 4, jobs. So jobs. In Paleolithic time, everybody had the same job. And that was one thing. To just survive, okay? No one was doing anything else. Survival mode was on, and that was it. In Neolithic times, though, now we have a stable food supply. We live in permanent shelters. We now live in a community. We now get to split responsibilities. We're going to have some new jobs pop up. Okay, we're not just farming or hunting and gathering. We're weaving. We're making baskets. We've got tool makers, and we're going to have people start to go out and start trading too. People then started focusing on getting really good at one job and one skill, and that's going to be a word called specialization. We're actually going to talk a lot about this word when it comes to the economics unit. So focusing on one thing and doing that one thing really, really well is called specialization, and this is when this starts. Humans just did not want to just survive. They wanted to make themselves, their life, their surroundings more beautiful and better. So they start having more time to explore beauty, to explore art, to explore better ways of making things. Okay, and that's going to lead us into civilized society. Here's this little illustration, some jobs, and it's not the best, but looks like there's maybe a pottery maker there sitting. So just kind of doing some things, Neolithic jobs. All right, with these notes, I want you to try them on your own. Just like I said before, you can go back in the video. You can look at what we have written down for what people's jobs were in Paleolithic times, how that then changed for Neolithic times. And again, why is this important? That's what we really want. All right, last one, guys. Thanks for hanging in there. All right, so cause and effect. Last one, number 5, trade. So trade. In Paleolithic times, people rarely traded. They only used the plants and animals and whatever resource they had found nearby. And you need to remember, this is a time of every man, woman, and child for themselves. They're just trying to survive. So if you found something cool, you weren't about to go give it to somebody else. Okay, you kept it for yourself. You used it if you could and whatnot. In Neolithic times, though, this is going to change because you're now not really stuck, but now that you're staying in one spot, you would then want to go out and get resources that you don't have in your area. Okay, so if you have a desire for something different and cool, you're not going to move your whole family. You're going to go leave and you're going to go see what's out there. Especially tool makers and craftspeople, they were in search for materials that were improving the strength of their tools or the beauty of the things that they were making. That's really what they were looking for here. So this is going to create a new job in the Neolithic age, someone who's a trader, whose job is to go out and trade. In this time, there are kind of certain items that were hot commodities, if you will. Flint and obsidian. I'm going to show you an obsidian arrowhead here in just a second. Those were highly desirable for their use in tools and weapons. And for beauty objects, okay, starting to see some jewelry popping up. So shells, jewels. There's even evidence of very early trading of natural pigments for makeup for women. So again, you see the desire for people to want something better, more beautiful. Trading then, this is very, very important here, trading is going to bring people into contact with other people from distant places. So you're no longer just hanging out and communicating with your community. You are now going out and you're interacting with people in other communities far away. This is going to help spread ideas, so language, culture, religion, and it's going to help spread knowledge, how to grow different kinds of crops, how to grow them better, how to design and build things better. So people are going to start trading ideas and knowledge. There is a word for this. It's called cultural diffusion, and it's going to come back in the end of this ancient civilizations unit when we talk about a very big trade route that was in the ancient times. All right, so here's that, the obsidian arrowhead from Neolithic times. Again, this was a very desirable object. And this is the last piece to your notes, okay? All right, try this on your own. Just like I said before, go back in the video if you need to. What is the main big idea for trade in Paleolithic times? What's the main idea for trade in Neolithic times? And why is that shift important? All right, we're at the end, guys. Let's do a real quick recap here. All right, so recap. The development of farming greatly changed people's lives. For the very first time in human history, millions of years we're talking about here, humans had a stable food supply. That stable food supply then caused a variety of things to happen. We started living in permanent shelters because we didn't have to worry about going out and finding food. Because we lived in permanent shelters, we started forming large communities. Because we lived in communities, we started dividing up our jobs and making new and better jobs. And eventually, we're going to have the creation of trade out of that. So we can go out and get new things, okay? So that's it for this lesson. Okay, like I said before, please make sure that your notes are complete, and I will then take a look at them, especially those last 3 sections that you did completely on your own, to make sure that you're understanding the big ideas. And like I said before as well, if you have any questions or something's confusing or we need to go over anything, please come see me and let me know. Thanks, guys.